Welcome back to All the Cars I've Loved Before, the podcast where we park the specs and the stats at the door to focus on the stories that really matter. You know what time it is. It's time to throw on that faded car t-shirt or hat, get a little grease under your nails and step back in time. We're here to talk to you about that very first car, the sense of pure freedom with the windows down, maybe the convertible top down, the music and your best friends piled in the back. We know that every car tells a story and those stories reveal exactly who we are, whether it's your forgotten beater, a lifelong project, or the one that got away. And we're driving in that personal history behind the metal. I'm Doug, and I'm here with my co host, Dave. Let's get into it. Dave, how are you?
I am doing very well, thank you. Thank you for having me back again, and I'm glad to be here.
Always a pleasure, sir. What's new in your world? Any car related activities?
Well, now that the all the ice is melted, if anybody's on the East Coast, they know that it took a while for that to happen. I've got to rearrange my parking situation, but I haven't actually turned any wrenches as of late. Still waiting for it to warm up a little bit more, but at least now that the ice is gone, I can put vehicles back where they're supposed to be. But how about you?
Two exciting things. I went to the America on Wheels Museum in Allentown. If anybody's never heard of Allentown, PA, you probably know the Billy Joel song. That's Allentown. So small museum, really fun. I brought my 14-year-old son and my 84-year-old mother. I think the highlight of that trip for her was sitting in the Model T in the back with my son and I sitting up front, and they let you honk the horn. A great picture experience, but they had a Nash Metropolitan exhibit, a Dodge Viper exhibit going on. Those are from car clubs, but yeah, really nice small museum. The highlight of my weekend was yesterday. I went to P1 Racing. It's a digital racing lounge like you see in the movies. It's in Annapolis, Maryland. I got to race a Cayman GTS on a track independently. It was a lot of fun. I wrecked the car a bunch of times. I had the option of stick shift or automatic, PDK, but there were siblings racing against each other. There was a father-son doing F1 style setup, but you get a lot of feedback. It really was a ton of fun. I highly recommend it to anyone. We're going to have the guys on the show, so I don't want to reveal too much, the co-owners, but tons of fun.
I know seeing the pictures that you sent me off podcast life made me want to go immediately. So I'm definitely going to be checking it out very soon, and can't wait to talk to the guys from there too because I'd like to know how they got into that. But super exciting! I have my Volkswagen hat because who we're talking to today is a big Volkswagen person, and we're going to get into that in a minute. And I know that Doug, if you're watching this on the YouTube, has a Beatles shirt on, which he got in California, and that actually also happens to be where our guest is from. So it's all tying in together. We got Volkswagens, we got California, we got everything coming together, and I can't wait to get into this. Speaking of, we're going to do a real quick podcast update. If you've listened to our podcast, the last one that just released was a heartwarming father and son project who actually wrote a book about their experience called From Clunker to Summit. They restored a 1998 Acura Integra and took it to Mount Evans. If you're back, thank you for coming back. If you're new here, go back and listen when this one's over. I think you'll really enjoy their story. They were really good people to talk to. And the son actually left a review after it and said, this is a quote from the review, a super genuine and authentic host that makes the podcast feel like chat with friends. Their content is easy to connect with and enjoyable. Would highly recommend. So thank you, Neil, for doing that for us. And I appreciate the feedback. It's going to help us grow. But now we got to get to the good stuff, and that's going to be Doug. How did this lovely guest get into our virtual garage?
Marla Aufmuth. She was a referral from one of our wonderful other Volkswagen loving guests, Guinevere Frescia from Frescia Brothers in Connecticut. Marla is a professional corporate portrait and lifestyle photographer who has documented landmark cultural events and figures for major brands, including Nike and TED Talks. And outside of her corporate work, she is a lifelong air-cooled Volkswagen enthusiast who has started her own Volkswagen focused called VWwomen.com. Let's introduce Marla. Marla, thanks for coming to the show.
Thanks for having me.
We're very excited, as we were talking in the pre-show. I haven't owned a Volkswagen, but there is a cult, and that is very common. When we talk to people, it's either Volkswagen or Jeep. Those are the two very common vehicles that people want. We have Dave here, of course. He's named his car, as well as many of the women you've interviewed for your photographic site. Tell us more about yourself, what you do, how you got into Volkswagen life, and then we'll jump into some questions.
Okay, well, it started, I think, in, I guess, the summer of 1976. My dad flew to Germany, bought a sunflower yellow Volkswagen Super Beetle convertible, and
Mhm.
spent that summer driving around Europe. And then he shipped it back and he named it Muth, as in our last name, Aufmuth, which also means of strength in German. And so it was his daily driver for years. So I grew up in the back of Muth. I learned to drive on Moot. In my 20s, I mastered the clutch on the hills of San Francisco as I lived there. And then eventually, after university, he finally gave me the car, so it became mine. And now every year I pray biannually as it will pass California smog tests because it's a 76.
Yeah, I was really pulling for that Leno's Law.
Is it going to go through? I hope it goes
I
through.
I think I heard it didn't, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's
Yeah.
looped back through because, as we mentioned earlier, I'd like to live in California, and I wanna bring my 1981 DeLorean out there, which maybe it could pass smog. I doubt it would, but,
Yeah.
all my DeLorean buddies out there who live out there, that's like a common thing. "Oh, I just passed smog," like it's a bragging rights. So
No, I spend probably 2 to 3 months, and I go to the smog place and befriend them,
mhm.
and I befriend the mechanic to go tweak it while it's on the smog machine.
Yep.
My multi-month project.
It's, probably anxiety provoking in some ways too.
Well,
You had a
you have to
challenge,
do it every
right?
2 years, so I'm like,
Yeah,
"Okay, I'm going to the mechanic," and my husband's like,
yeah.
"Okay, I'll see you for dinner," because he knows I'll be gone all day long.
I'm not
Go
a
ahead, Dave.
100%. I'm not 100% familiar. I know of smog tests. Is it that rigorous that it's like hard to get the older cars through?
Every
Thinking about
county
it.
has different levels, so it depends
Okay.
what county you're in, and the irony is the smog guy at the end, my car would barely run. It was limping up. The guy who tested it, oil is pouring out the back of the engine, and it passed smog. So even the smog guy was like, "It's just a moneymaker for California," because
Mhm.
obviously my car is not environmentally okay as the oil is pouring out.
Good. I learned, California was the first state in the country under Ronald Reagan as governor to implement that, the, CARB, California Air Resources Board.
You're driving an old car, you're gonna keep it going no matter what, which I
Yep,
will do.
yep.
They should just sort of grandfather them out. Like, I just learned that my car is 50 years old this
Mhm.
year. So I feel like if you have a car that old, maybe they could just change those dates to be a little higher.
Because
Yeah.
in Maryland, that would be not even historic. It would be antique at that point. I think
Yeah.
um, antique starts at the 30 or 35-year mark, and they're not subject to any tests or anything as long as it can. If it has a steering wheel and a pedal and four wheels, or even three wheels, depending on what kind of car it is. You can drive it. So like I'm surprised that California is so strict, even though it's a 50-year-old car. But like you said, every county has its own little regulations, which Maryland has some sections that have vehicle emissions and other sections don't. So like where I'm living, I don't have vehicle emissions, but yet Doug
Oh,
does.
I didn't know that. In Annapolis, we do, but between my all-electric car and my DeLorean, which does not have to be smog tested, it's
Right.
has not been a problem for me.
Well, Dave, I might be hitting you up to register my car at your house.
There you
Uh-oh.
go.
Dave, I see a scam going on here.
Hey, if she lives here part-time and that happens
Yep.
to be, stop by,
Okay. Dave,
right?
I see a side hustle brewing here. That's what I meant to say last
House
week.
exchange, you can come to
There you go. Go experience the California hills for once in my life.
You might not wanna come back. It's a great place. If, I don't know how far we got into your introduction with all the nice chatter. Did you talk about your Volkswagen photography?
No, so we didn't get there. So I
Oh, good,
have the
thank you.
76 Super Beetle. During the pandemic, since I am a corporate photographer, my work just stopped. So I had lots of time to think and lots of time to work on my Volkswagen. Dave, as you know, every time you're with a bug, someone comes up to tell you a story about
Oh yeah.
a Volkswagen. So I decided, I was like, why am I not photographing women in their air cooled Volkswagens? It seems like an obvious project. So the idea was kind of conceived during COVID, and then I was like, "Okay, how do I find these women?" So
Right?
I started going on Facebook. I've discovered the whole Volkswagen community, which is so expansive, and started reaching out to local clubs, and someone put me in touch with a woman. We did my first photo shoot. It was awesome, and then it just kind of has grown from there. Over the last, I think, 3 years, I've photographed 40 different women in 10 states. There's 5 different models of Volkswagens, from the buses to the Beetles to the Things, Squarebacks, and Gias. And then it's just keep going, and every time I meet a woman, I'm just so amazed by their story, their love for their car, and everyone has a Volkswagen story to tell.
They do. Maybe we
Yeah,
should
everybody.
change the podcast, Dave, to be every Volkswagen has a story.
Everybody has a Volkswagen story, but that's just because they were so prevalent everywhere you went. It didn't matter if you were in Europe or America. Like those when they made their debut in the gas shortage era, they stuck because they were so reliable, being air cooled. They were easy to keep running. Like, my story about keeping mine running with a literal penny and a piece of duct tape, because they're that resilient that you can figure it out. And since then, it started, as you mentioned, kind of like that cult following, even though we never try to, we don't lean into that. We just go, oh, look, another Volkswagen. But 100%, every time you're out driving, somebody's going to have a story or a question or a comment or something, or even just a smile and a wave because they love them.
Yeah, I mean, it's what the Beetle was the most longest produced car and best-selling car ever.
23 million Beetles were produced. Like, that's a crazy amount of cars.
I think number 2 was, Model T Ford. We're
Yeah.
talking about polar opposites. So, I do have to just throw out, since even though I'm not a Volkswagen guy, I don't own a Volkswagen, my DeLorean
Yes,
does have something in common with the Volkswagen. This is a quiz. What do you guys think? I'm gonna let Marla go first.
I'm
In
thinking.
common.
Something in common.
I've only seen a DeLorean from the outside. Never
Okay. It has something to do with what's behind the driver's seat.
Oh, I know. I get it.
Yep,
with the engines in the back?
it is.
Okay.
I actually went to a car show, just downtown Annapolis, Cars and Coffee, and somebody said, "I thought the DeLorean engine was in the front." I'm like, "No." He's like, "Are you sure?" That's the way it came from the
That's funny.
factory.
I
Yeah,
don't think I'd ever put 2 and
that's
2 together on that
some
myself. Like, of
some
course,
trivia.
Volkswagens are notorious for having rear engine, but
Yep,
I never, like, we looked at yours last time I saw it and you were
yep,
showing me the stuff that you were doing, but it didn't click like, "Oh, look, it's a rear engine car too." It
yep.
didn't.
Just trying to fit in with the Volkswagen crowd.
Well,
Sorry about that. If you don't mind, Marla, maybe we can chat about your first car a little bit, how you got it, our standard spiel for the podcast, and we'll dive into some more questions.
So my first
You
car was Muth. I learned
Mood?
to drive on him, and it was interesting hearing people talk about learning to drive on stick shift, and I don't remember, we just did it. I don't think it was really a thought since it was my dad's main car, like, we just got in and I learned it. We went. So I wasn't allowed to drive Moot to high school, but I could drive him to work after that. So that was my car, and then when it became mine around 94 or 5, my dad actually, his coworker was selling me a '77 Super Beetle that was orange convertible, so he actually bought that. So even though he gave me the yellow bug, he ended up with an orange bug, so I think he
Oh,
really
okay.
quite get rid of the Beetles
So we
life.
kind of traded up.
Yeah, yeah, 1 year.
And in the meantime, right, you did have another car because that's a
No,
long
so
period.
I moved to San Francisco, was driving it there, was working as a photo assistant, and I would show up on photo shoots to assist photographers. And an assistant they go to the equipment rental store and gets all this heavy equipment and piles it in their car. And I remember showing up to a shoot with my top down with 5, 10 foot holes for lighting and gear just piled in there. Because when you put the top
Mhm.
down, you can actually fit a lot of stuff in there. But I was like, okay, maybe I shouldn't be going to photo shoots in my bug with all this gear piled in there. The photographers thought it was funny, but you can't lock it. It could fly out. There's lots of things that could
Yeah.
go wrong. So my second car, I did inherit from my sister via my grandparents, a Honda Accord.
Okay.
So that became my work car.
Keeping it in the family again.
And that car was jinxed. It got in so many accidents. I think it was champagne colored that no one could see. Two people U-turn into me. I had someone parked in front of me at a light or stopped at a light, just back into me, like just weird accidents. So I ended up selling that and then have my Nissan Altima now that I've had since '08.
So you've had the Volkswagen Super Beetle the whole time off, and Ultima. That's it?
Yeah.
3 cars in your whole life.
3 cars in my whole life.
Yeah.
I think living in the city, in a city,
Mhm.
you don't really have room to have more. I mean, I already have
Right.
2. I go and visit these women that live out in Nevada that have, like they basically bought plots of land so that they can have their 28 buses and whatnot. We just don't have that space, so
Do you have a garage for a Moot?
no. So I
Oh,
have room in the driveway.
okay. Well, hey, you gotta do what you gotta do. I was just curious because my my Alice has never really seen a inside of a garage either, but, it's one of
Yeah.
those things where you gotta do what you gotta do.
Right?
How
So
often do you get Moot a
So usually when it's nicer weather, like it's raining right now, he's having a bit of a battery drain issue. So I kind of like unplugged the battery. Like we just been gone for 2 weeks, so I haven't plugged him quite back in because it's pouring rain. But
Mhm.
definitely a lot more in the summer. Although he doesn't like to go very far, so it's more like 10 block radius right now.
And
He's
definitely
so active.
less of a rust issue out there. I know in SoCal, Southern California, like, you see cars just last forever that would have disintegrated on the East Coast long ago.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
no, he's rusted on one paint job, but nothing like you guys have on the East Coast because we don't
yeah.
have salt and
Yep.
we don't have that humidity or anything like that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Like, it was funny because whenever I travel for work or my corporate jobs, I always tag on some Volkswagen women, and I
Mhm.
this
Smart.
really late fall, and luckily last year, like, organized some women and this weather was really nice because 'cause they're like, "Yeah, we put our cars away," and I was like, "Oh, I didn't realize that's what you have to do."
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
put them away.
It's a tough life out here. We have the seasons,
It's really
And
pretty there in the
but
fall, I say.
and
yeah,
the
but
battery drain is a thing in the
yep.
Volkswagen world. I have a marine battery, disconnect on mine, so, like, if I know I'm gonna be parking it for more than a couple days, I go under the seat and I disconnect, and it's a quick disconnect, so it's, just stops the battery from draining.
Ooh, maybe I need to do that.
The marine battery disconnect, it
Okay.
works really well.
I've gotten a solar, like, slow trickle charge that I
Oh,
it's kinda more of a pain.
so thinking back, I know you grew up with Moot. Is there something that you just loved about it? I know you grew up with it, so it's a little bit different than, hey, I just saw that car down the street and it had, in my case, pop-up headlights, and that was like a big thing. But is there something about Moot, whether it's the basic dash, the round headlights?
I feel like when I get in mood, as you're driving. You're actually driving a car. And I
Mhm.
always joke, like people complain, like, I would never want stick shift. There's too much traffic. But I am convinced that if everyone drove stick shift, traffic would flow more fluidly because people just like slam on the gas and then the brake now. So it's all like, but if you have to shift and actually get up to something,
Oh,
I think traffic would just like ebb and flow in a much more fluid, lovely way.
mhm.
I
Nope,
love driving.
solid
I
point.
love and then I love putting on a winter jacket, putting the top down, and just
Mhm.
driving with that air, and that just there's nothing else
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah. Nothing beats a convertible, and I own many, and I don't wanna take your thunder, but what I've said is, like, the worst car that's a convertible is the best car on a nice day. And then sometimes any convertible is not fun, minus modern ones, and on, like, the worst weather because, it's just letting in the cold air, the sound, but on a beautiful day, it's still the best car.
I've never owned a convertible, so I can't speak to
Well
that.
well, Dave, we could cut the roof off your car if you like. I
I
think I
am
know somebody.
I was gonna say, not Alice, but we could definitely get a different car and cut the roof off.
Or you
Alright.
could just get a convertible.
Or we could do that too. It is funny, and I just remembered this story when I was probably post high school. I had the opportunity to buy, it was this 5 Beetle convertible, and my dad, who helped me with so many different things, his comment was, "I don't know anything about Volkswagens." And he's a smart guy. He was a, American V8 front engine rear wheel drive guy, and it was just so foreign to him. Of course, it's the simplest car in the world to work on.
Yeah, yeah. I feel like there is that divide though between the
Mhm.
American cars and then the old vintage Volkswagens.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for
I had a cousin that was a lifelong mechanic. He's still alive, but he's retired now. He would refuse to work on a Volkswagen. And it wasn't because of it was a Volkswagen. It was because of the way that it was engineered. Like the passenger side um, lug nuts, you'll turn one way, and then the driver's side turn another. And like those kind of things. And he was just like, "No, I won't work on a Volkswagen." And so I had to work on my Volkswagen by myself. But he would work on every other car with me just not the Volkswagen. Refused. And it's like one of those, okay, whatever, little quirk.
Yeah.
But
Quirky. You gotta know the ins and outs of the Volkswagens, as you know.
you can
I
you can get yourself in a heap of trouble if you don't know what you're doing, but at the same time, once you learn it and find the simplicity, it's like, oh, well, that was, super simple.
though you've only had 3 cars, and, you did mention what your dream car is, and, then I wanna circle back to talk more about your photography. Tell everybody about your dream car, because I hadn't heard of this particular model.
Okay, so talking to all these women who have buses, they
Mhm,
have so much fun camping and road tripping in their buses that I was like, I really
mhm,
want a Volkswagen bus. But honestly, like having 2 vintage cars keeps me busy enough, like taking care of him. So I was like, I was like, okay, maybe the ID Buzz will be cool, but I feel like Volkswagen did not quite pull that one off. And one
yeah,
of the women actually goes to a lot of the Volkswagen shows over in Europe, and she always rents this Volkswagen California. And so Volkswagen has basically done a hybrid version of like a modern version of the Volkswagen bus. So it has a pop-up top, it has a full kitchen inside, it has sliding doors on both sides, so you can like go through all the whole bus. They call it like 3 rooms, so like both side awnings become living spaces with the Volkswagen camper van itself as like part of your home. And so to have something that's modern but still actually reflect those earlier buses and Westphalias and Rivieras like that you could
mm.
sleep in would be ideal. And then it's a hybrid, so it's electric, but yet you could still go off-road or go wherever you need to go and not worry. So that would be my dream car.
And actually, I was looking at those earlier myself, and it does definitely hail back to the Westphalia days with the square nose Volt vans, the Vanagons, which,
Yeah,
because they changed it
yeah.
to the Vanagon after a while, and it would be cool to have one of those myself, but at the same time, I don't go far enough that I would need it, but it's a Volkswagen, so I'd own it anyway.
And you can't get them here because 'cause they're only in Europe. That's the dream.
Exactly. You could definitely import one of the older ones now, 'cause if it's over, 'cause, 25 is the cutoff, so if it came out in 2000, you can own one of the old ones, ship it over.
So that's a good idea.
That's how I got my little van. I, shipped it from Japanese.
Oh, I know. I went on that website that you had talked about to look at all the K cars.
It's it's dangerous, and of course, when the tariffs went up, that was like I was thinking about buying one, I'm like, "Nah, this is a good reason not to."
Yeah, so my husband's 6'3". Do you think he'd fit in one of those K cars?
Ooh, depends on which one, 'cause my van, the seat's all the way back. I'm 6 foot, so
Okay.
he's got and my knees just brush the dashboard. So 6'3" might be touching like a little bit mainly uncomfortable. He could definitely fit, just not for a long period of time. We'll put it that
Yeah,
way,
yeah.
for sure.
You never know, we might have to have Marla back with maybe with her husband.
All right, one more question about the vintage
Sweet.
Volkswagen. I'm curious. So we've talked about all the positives. What's one thing you wish would be different or like the worst part of owning an old air cooled? And I'm pretty sure I know the answer, but we'll
It's mine's fuel injected.
okay. So
So that adds a
6,
little
yeah.
quirk to people fixing it.
Mm.
I don't work on my own engine, so it's finding the mechanics who actually won't lie to you and say they don't know how to work on them and will actually do it. Because I know I've been driving that car for what? I don't know, 40 plus years. So I know every sound it makes, so I know when it's not running right.
Mhm.
So it's finding that person, and they have to be, like, in their 70s or 80s. I feel like those old mechanics are the only ones that know, and luckily I have one right now, so knock on wood,
Mm.
around for a while longer, but it's probably me not knowing how to do enough to tweak it to keep it going.
Understood.
Yeah.
That's a solid answer. Not what I was thinking actually, but
What were you
solid
thinking?
answer. I was thinking it was going to be the trying to get it through smog every year or every 2 years, like you were talking about. I mean, obviously, the newer the car, it's probably going to be easier because the computers are worrying about getting it through. Where this one is, somebody's going to have to turn a wrench or a screwdriver somewhere and get it through. But
Yeah,
that makes a lot of sense. I'm a little blessed because less than probably 20 minutes or 30 minutes drive from me is an actual Volkswagen specialist. And he has what's called the Auto House. And he only works on old Volkswagens. So, like,
Mm.
now granted, he's getting up in age, like you mentioned. So at the moment, knock on wood, I have somebody that I can call and or take my Beetle to if I need it. I try to do a lot of it myself, but it's a dying art for
yeah.
the Volkswagen, the air-cooled world.
I just wanted to loop back and hear more about the photography, Volkswagen Women.com. You started sharing about it being a pandemic endeavor, and
Yeah,
it's obviously
so
taken off since then and
Yeah,
continued.
so it's totally grown and it's been great because through these different clubs, I'll find women who I will reach out to, see if they're interested, share with them the project. And, it takes a lot of trust to have some strangers show up with you in your car and interview you and photograph you. And so many women have trusted me to like tell their story right and for them to share their story with me. So that's just been lovely. And what's great is I never really know their story beforehand. I just kind
Mhm.
of go on a leap of faith that this will work out. So, in having no idea what these stories are, I am always so excited. I get in the car after I call my husband. I'm like, "You're not going to believe this story." Blah 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 blah. And so it's just been really fun to slowly roll these stories out from Guinevere, who you met, who's fifth generation Volkswagen repair shop owner. And she actually had a fear of driving her car until she started getting in her Beetle and could just like concentrate on driving. So to see her kind of persevere and work through that has been amazing. Another woman is Sarah, and she has a what does she have? A 67 Riviera conversion bus named River, and she drives the Shasta Snow Trip every year. Do you guys
Mm,
know what that is?
I
I've never
don't.
heard of that myself.
Okay, so every February, this actually happens. So during a California winter, all these old buses, all air-cooled buses, get together and they drive 300 to 500 miles all off-road around Mount Shasta. So it's through snow, it's through rivers, buses are sliding off the hillsides. Like it's crazy and
That
it's
sounds crazy.
off the grid, and they've been doing it for a long time, like 25 years now or something. And she's one of the few women that does it, and she's, like, dropped her engine in the middle of, like, some dirt road to fix something, like, she's amazing.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so I meet people like that, and I'm like, "Oh, wow, okay, I got a lot to do."
It's intimidating when you have people like that too, because you're thinking like, I know some stuff, and then you hear, oh, well, I was, 300 miles deep in the wood and did this. I was like, you know what? Never mind.
She does it by herself, which is even more incredible, like, lots of couples go, and she's doing it by herself.
And where is Mount Shasta?
So it's in Northern California.
Okay. I am just amazed thinking about the buses, and I always think about the 60s. What was it like to take one of those on a road trip? They're underpowered, they're not safe. Nothing was safe back then
Yeah,
by
I
today's
know.
standards, of course, but
Standard.
no air conditioning, right? Just little stick shift and going uphill. I can just
You
imagine
just go slow.
sputter. Maybe that's why the '60s worked out so well. It's people were not in a rush,
Yeah.
whether chemically induced rush or not. They were just very laid back. Just doesn't sound like a fun travel vehicle, but back in the day, they made it work and they continue doing it. It's
Yeah,
still
she's
an
brilliant.
homage. I'm looking at your site while we're talking. I think Dave mentioned Cora and the double cab
Oh,
is
yeah.
one that caught his eye.
My dream car.
She started collecting Volkswagens. She got into them because of her brother, and then ended up with 8 buses, and then met Mitch, who she ended up marrying, and they ended up with 28 buses, and now they have a whole restoration shop they've built on this piece of land. Yeah.
And where is that for?
They're outside of Reno in Nevada. It's a really pretty valley up
Yeah.
there, and they have, like, a Volkswagen camp out that they invite all their friends and their Volkswagens every, I think, August or spring. Just have really delved into the whole Volkswagen community, and they do drives, and they go to Genta car shows together. It's pretty cool to see what they've built.
That's awesome. And it's the sanctuary for Volkswagens too, because Nevada is famous for having some of the cleanest Volkswagens. Because, like we were talking about, with no rust,
Yeah,
like
so dry
it's such a
there.
dry environment and everything. So I'm sure all of their buses are gorgeous.
Yeah.
Well, the ones that were restored.
There's some, yeah, shells out there too.
The donor ones aren't as pretty, but they're still in
No.
my world. They could do something with that.
They'll get used in somehow, some way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's just a wonderful sisterhood from looking at your website, vwwomen.com, all different ages who love these cars and they've found something common, whether it's growing up with one like you did, or Cora, she mentioned that her brother was interested in Volkswagens and that's how she got kind of pulled into it. And he ended up living with her and that like made the connection stronger with
Yep.
Volkswagens. And as you mentioned, She met her husband. He liked Volkswagen buses. So 28 buses later, there you go. But where do you see your hobby going? Because it doesn't seem to be stopping anytime soon.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many more women. I have a list of women I haven't even met yet. So it'll definitely keep going. I would love to see it be in a book so that more
That's what
people
I was
can
thinking.
have access to these stories. I think it'd be really fun to go to car shows and campouts and everything in the Volkswagen community and like sell the book and share these stories.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
Monterey here, has Monterey Car Week in August, where
Mhm.
the Concours d'Elegance is, and it's a whole week of events, and I would love to be part of the, like, the little car show and have a bunch of women show up in their Volkswagens, and men too, and show
Sure.
up with these Volkswagens that are kind of the opposite of what shows up at the Concours d'Elegance, but still, I
Right.
think should be respected in their own right and do a parade out there, so I think that would be my where I'd love to see it go.
That sounds pretty exciting. I was hoping you would say something like starting a cars and coffee, just something fun that spreads the word and continues the love of Volkswagen.
Yeah, that's
Bring that
exactly what I
community
want.
together. I really appreciate you, of course, I'm a Volkswagen fan, but even if you were doing, just bringing more like acknowledgement and notoriety to the females in our car cultures that are out there doing their own thing, like your friend that does the snow drive, like that's amazing that she's out there, even if it, if for anybody going out there alone is impressive, but someone that, it's one of those, like you mentioned in your bio on your website, that a lot of times in the car culture, it feels like women are minimalized or even sexualized. And there's a lot of us out there that appreciate that there's more than just the typical, car show kind of mentality where, we try to be as welcoming as we can for everybody. But yeah, it's one of those things where I really love your project, and I can't wait to keep following it along myself, just to see who else you meet and their stories. Because obviously, I'm a big fan of car stories anyway. Here we are right now. But yeah, that's awesome.
Dave, I guess we just need to keep having more Volkswagen people on to keep you entertained. Here's the next one. I did want to ask before Dave does the wind down. How does your husband feel about this? Is he allowed to drive Moot?
So I don't think he's ever driven my Volkswagen.
But he's been a passenger.
He's
Right?
been a passenger plenty
Yeah.
times.
Yeah.
I think I even asked he knows how to drive stick. I've even asked
Mhm.
once, and I think he's kinda like, "No." But he has actually been my biggest advocate for this project.
I bet.
So it's been, hard to find some women at first, and then once I
Mm.
figured it out, they've come together, but we'll go to a coffee shop, and I'll come out with our coffees, and he'll be talking to some woman, and he's like, "Oh, this is Brenda. She has a Carmen Kia. You guys should talk."
Like,
That's awesome.
Or he'll be on a bike ride, and he'll be like, "Oh, I found this square back in the shed. It's Lynette's. You gotta call her." And I'm like, "Okay."
yeah.
So it's been great to have him be so excited and
Yeah.
supportive.
But he is not a car guy, but he is a Marla guy.
He likes his cars in his own way, so
What kind of we talked about the 2 cars you have. Is the Altima his as well, or he has his own car?
no, he has a big, Toyota truck that's even
Okay.
older than my Nissan. But in preparation for this, I was like, "What is your dream car?" And he
Mhm.
to have a Volvo, like a late '60s Volvo, the really boxy square ones, and
Yeah.
he's
Like
decided that's what he'd like to find again.
Oh, nice. There's
Volvo
a
did have that P1600, which looked a lot like a Carmen Ghia. I always think they look very similar.
There's a few I feel like that kinda look similar of that era, and I can't remember what else, but yeah.
Maybe we'll have your husband on next time. Do a joint interview if he'd like to join us.
I'll
Okay.
ask him. He is a little
Yeah.
shy, so we'll
Okay.
just
Hopefully you can twist his arm now that we broke the ice a little
there
bit.
you
But
go.
we'd love to have him if anything, just to talk about how much he enjoys helping you.
Yeah, it was great.
It's
He actually got to come and witness one of my interviews, and sometimes, the women get really emotional and cry, and I've
Mhm.
done this, and then he actually witnessed it, and he was like, "Wow, like,
Yeah.
these Volkswagens mean so much to so many people, and to see that, it's just incredible." So
That's funny because that was going to be my follow up question: is when you go traveling to do these interviews and photo shoots, like, does he go with you?
no, I do most of them on my own. He's only been to one.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
that's cool. That was just one of my follow up questions that popped in my head.
Yeah, no, they take a lot of time. So, like, I have to meet the person, kind of build their trust, and then I go to wherever they are, scout the location because I want it to be easy for them. So somewhere close. I need to find a location where I won't get like run over or we won't get squished
Good
in any
point.
way, which is actually a lot harder than I thought it would be. Like I didn't really kind of think that part through when I came up with this idea.
Mhm.
And then, they take like an hour or an hour and a half sometimes. Sometimes the Volkswagens don't run. Like I had one woman call her neighbors first thing in the morning to push it out of her driveway or out of her garage up the driveway so we could do the shoot because she wanted to be part of the project so much.
Mhm.
So
There's
people
the
go
problem
through a
with
lot of
the
effort to make this happen, and I need to thank them all.
well, the adventure is part of that too, you know what I mean? Like, if you don't know what to expect, then you kind of, you're going into it knowing what you want the outcome to be, but how we get there is the adventure too, and that's kind of my outlook on it, at least.
It's so true. And this one woman who pushed it up the driveway, she was like, "Well, it's not starting, so if it works, it works. If not, then just come over and I'll make you some beignets and we'll have coffee." And I was like, "Okay, how do you say no to
Right? Deal.
Win-win. Win.
Awesome. All right. I
No
feel
doubt.
like it's time to head towards the proverbial off ramp. I want to say thank you to Marla for coming on the show with us and having this wonderful conversation. Please keep up the good work that what you're doing. And if anybody, I encourage everybody listening, go to vwwomen.com, read these stories, see the gorgeous pictures that Marla's taking. She really does have a knack for her photography. That's probably why she's made it this far in life as a photographer, but she's doing good things and having awesome stories. So thank you for Marla for being here. And like I said, check out vwwomen.com. And that has been the show. You've been riding shotgun with To All the Cars I've Loved Before, the podcast celebrating the metal that shapes our lives and the stories that keep them running. If today's episode sparked a memory of your own first ride or a project gathering dust in the garage, we want to hear about it. He's Doug. Reach him at Doug@carslove.com. And I'm Dave. You can find me at Dave@carslove.com. Again, special thanks to Marla. Check out her cool pictures and stories. And if you enjoyed the trip down memory lane today, please follow us and tell a friend. Leave a review on the Apple Podcast is the best way to help our community grow. And you can find everything you need from us and our social links and everything to our past pod episodes at our link tree, linktr.ee/carsloved. And until next time, keep the windows down and the stories moving.